Hello everyone and welcome to the Windows Server 2019 Administration Fundamentals. I'm your trainer Bekim Daouti. Let's move forward. In this chapter, we're going to cover the understanding of host and nodes. Furthermore, we will find out what is a client and what is a server, as well as what is the network architectures or what are the types of the network architecture. We will try to understand the IP addressing and the subnetting, and then delve a little bit into the Windows Server overview of what is a Windows Server in particular, and then proceed with finding out what are the Windows Server 2019 editions, and then to move on in terms of getting familiar with the minimum and the recommended system requirements, because we need that prior to installing the Windows Server 2019, and conclude this presentation with the downloading Windows Server 2019. Well, actually everything began with the need to share resources. That's how the computer network came into being. Initially, back in 60s, professors, enthusiasts, peoples, and businesses in particular were very much interested to actually design, deploy, install, and build community networks with the purpose to share resources. When we say resources, well, we actually think about the files. Actually, we think about the peripheral devices as well. Okay, and network services. Okay, so all of these are actually representing a resource in a community network. In terms of the community network overview, furthermore, as we've said, the reason for sharing resources is that that's actually the beauty of the community network. By being able to share resources, okay, and that is actually facilitating almost everything, especially the communication, collaboration, okay, and team working is actually something that is fabulously done by the community networking. Okay, understanding host and nodes. So what is host and what is the node? It's actually a small fraction that is dividing or creating the difference, but that small fraction actually makes that huge difference as well. Okay, so host is actually any device, okay, that has a network interface, and then on that network interface has an IP address, and then it's using that IP address to identify itself in such community networking, and by that IP address is actually requesting for your services and providing services. On the other hand, the node is actually a device that has either one or multiple physical ports. Okay, and then in one of those ports, it has an IP address, but that IP address is not being used to communicate. When I say to communicate, I'm actually referring to the asking or requesting service network services and providing network services. In most cases, the nodes are using the IP addresses for the management purposes, whether the hosts are using the IP addresses for communication. In terms of the clients and servers, well, the client usually in a community networking, or say local area network, the client would always actually request services, whereas the server is a PC that provides those services. Now, this is actually the beauty of this type of a network architecture. Why? Because we would always have hosts that are going to provide services, and would always have hosts that are going to ask or request services. In terms of the types of community networks, well, from a perspective of the physical arrangement, when we say physical arrangement, we're actually referring to the physical topology. What we have, and also the logical topology as well, pardon, because when we say logical topology, we'd always mention the name, the host name, and the IP address, two main logical elements of a host. Other than that, there's also communication protocols as well, which is another logical aspect of the community networking. Well, from the perspective of the topologies and technologies used and the way that we access network services, we have personal area network, which is a personal community networking that is actually this type of a community network is all about personal community network. Reason why personal? Because you will end up having a laptop, and ending up having a tablet, a smartphone, okay, headset, and then most probably you're actually establishing an ad hoc wireless connection via the Bluetooth or wirelessly among these devices, and therefore you actually have created or built this type of a community network. So personal area network belongs to one particular individual. Okay, then we have the local area network, which is actually based on the technology, communication technology in this particular situation. Or nowadays, we're actually using the Ethernet 802.3 according to IEEE. And then the local area network is actually a community network that can be housed within one particular office, several offices within one floor, several floors, or several buildings, but buildings to be near to one another. How near would be a question. It all depends, as I said, from the communication technology that is being applied or used in order to build that particular community networking. But with Ethernet and twisted pair, it should not go beyond 100 meters. Then we have the metropolitan area network, as the name indicates. This particular community networking belongs to one particular city or metro, okay, by actually creating connection in between the government, the building, the businesses, the subsidiaries, the universities, headquarters of the businesses, and the citizens of that particular city. And then we have the wide area network, okay. If the local area network and metropolitan area network, without not excluding the personal area network, but because that's personal, I'm not actually including that as well. Okay, so because since land and man, they have actually limitations in terms of the coverage. Okay, wide area network doesn't have it. Why? Because other than using the technology which is actually available in the surface of the planet Earth, it is also using the satellite communication at the orbit of the planet Earth, and therefore actually breaking these barriers in terms of establishing connection from one continent to another continent. So the best example of the wide area network is actually the internet. Understanding the network architectures, there are two types of the network architectures. There are peer-to-peer networking and client-server networking. We've already covered the client-server networking, but once again, client-server networking is actually community network architecture with a dedicated servers that provide resources on a community network. Whereas the peer-to-peer networking actually, it's a community network that switches roles based on who is requesting and who is actually providing the resource on the network. So there are cases when, for instance, like computer A, at one time is going to provide share files for a certain computer in that local area network. And then in that case, because it's sharing, so it's providing actually that particular file service, then that computer is actually playing the role of a server. But after some time, the same computer A in this example, might happen that is actually requesting some service, say print service from another computer, from another peer on that particular computer networking. Therefore, then in this case, the computer A actually plays the role of a client. Why? Because it's actually requesting for the service. Understanding the network architectures, well, visually over here on the left side we have the peer-to-peer networking. On the right side we have the client-server networking. When we look at the peer-to-peer networking, we see that we have actually PCs and the laptops. They are equal, and just because of this fact, that's why this is called peer-to-peer networking, because these peers are actually constituting this particular type of computer networking. Whereas the situation is completely different in a client-server networking. Why? Because in advance or predetermined, we have actually a computer or a host that provides services, and then which is called a dedicated computer, in this case dedicated server, and then we have the clients, whereas the PCs, desktop computers or laptops are actually requesting accessing those services from that particular dedicated computer, such as the server. In this example, we see the printer attached directly to a server. Then logically we can think of this server as the host that is providing the print services in this particular computer networking. Understanding the IP addressing and the subnetting. Okay, very briefly, IP address serves the computer by helping the computer to be identified on the computer network. And this the IP addressing is a logical element that enables the computer to be identified in computer networking and communicate with the other peers or other hosts in that particular computer network, whereas the local area network, metropolitan area network, or wide area network. The subnetting is an element, again, a logical element that is actually providing the information or telling the computer in which particular computer network or which network the computer belongs to. In terms of the IP addressing, well, we have the IP version 4 and IP version 6. IP version 4 is 32 bits or 4 bytes, okay, and IP version 6 is 128 bits or 16 bytes. Okay, the representation is the dot decimal for the IP version 4, and the hexadecimal is for the IP version 6. Okay, and then in terms of the usage, well, we can actually go and Google this particular information, see how we stand in terms of the percentage of the traffic on the internet in terms of the IP addressing technologies. But as far as I know, we're still actually communicating with the IP version 4, although more and more the IP version 6 is actually becoming more mature and then more deployed as well. Let's move on. Subnetting, as we've said, identifies the network to one the host belongs. Based on the classes of the IP version 4, then we have the default subnet mask, or known differently as classful subnetting. There's also a classless interdomain routing, CIDR. Okay, subnetting, which is more rationally usage of the IP addressing scope. Okay, and based on the classful subnetting, well, for the class A we have 255.0.0.0. For the class B we have 255.255.0.0, and then for the class C we have the 255.255.255.0. Okay, understanding the network operating system. What is the network operating system? Well, the network operating system is any operating system that can provide network services. Let's provide an example of one single network service, file server or file services. How? Because any operating system that can share files, that particular server, that particular host or computer can actually claim to be a network operating system, or has an operating system that is a NOS. Okay. Other than that, for instance, like let's take an example with Windows 10. If we have a computer with Windows 10, well, we can share files, we can share the printer, we share the web services as well, the FTP services as well. We can virtualize that particular machine as well. So as we've seen, and we're actually figure out from this example, well, Windows 10 is a network operating system, but it's not recommended to install it on the server, because for the servers we have the Windows Server. Okay, other than that, from Microsoft we have the Windows Server 2016, 2019, 2012, 28 earlier editions or versions. From the Apple, we have the OS X server. From the Linuxes, we have the distros or the distributors of the Linux. They have actually almost each of the distro. Each distro actually has its own variation of the Linux server. Okay, so NOS is capable of, in general, sharing files and applications, providing web services, managing access to resources, providing tools for configuration, and then maintaining and provisioning the resources, and actually providing the plenty of the other functions in tools to actually monitor and maintain the network services. Understanding the server hardware and the software. Okay, from a perspective of the service, we always need to be cautious and then monitor the activity of the four main hardware components. And those four main hardware components are processor, RAM, disk, and network interface. We should not compromise the quality and also the power of that particular component. For instance, like we should not compromise that. For instance, like we can purchase the latest processor, but obviously we can compromise the other components such as the RAM, disk, and network interface. That's not recommended. Why? And it's actually not only recommended, that is not good to be done. Why? Because if we are a business and if we have a server built in that particular philosophy, then very soon it will come the time when we might actually not be able to provide this service. Why? Because of the fact that we've compromised the quality of one particular component, or maybe one more than one. Okay. Proceeding furthermore, server size and form factors. Servers are coming in different shapes and sizes and forms, but in general, we have the rack mountable server, which is a server or traditionally big server that are mounted on the rack. We have the blade servers, usually representing the small modules known as blades that are mounted to the server chassis to save the space. And finally, we have the tower servers, which in general are actually known as the office servers, mainly for file servicing, print services, web services to some extent, just but always for the testing purposes in most cases. Okay, what's the Windows Server? Well, the Windows Server is the Microsoft product. It's a network operating system developed by the Microsoft Fleet servers. So Windows Server is installed in the server. So Windows 10 is installed in personal computers. Okay, moving forward. Windows Server 2019 editions, well, we have the data center, the standard, and essentials. The data center is designed for the enterprises. The standard is designed for the medium-sized businesses, and the essential is actually designed for the small businesses. Okay, in terms of the minimum and the recommended system requirements, well, minimum is actually the requirement that comes from the vendor, in this case, the Microsoft. Okay, so to install the Windows Server 2019 on a PC, on a host, okay, or on a server, we need to have a processor minimum requirement, a processor with 1.4 gigahertz, 64-bit architecture, a 512 megabyte of RAM, and from 20 to 32 gigabyte of the storage space. Then obviously monitor, the monitor that can support the Super VGA. Other hardware, DVD will help, and then SSDs, the USB, actually SSD with the USB, the keyboard and the mouse, and we need the internet connection as well. Why? Because once we install the operating system, such as the Windows Server 2019, we need to activate. So in order to activate, we need to get connected to the activation, so Microsoft Activation Server. To do that, we need the internet connection. But other than activating, we need to update as well, which is a very crucial as well activity of the system administrator. Therefore, we need an internet connection. Okay, so we are actually at the downloading Windows Server 2019. Okay, can we download Windows Server 2019 from the legitimate sources? Yes, and one legitimate source is the Windows, the TechNet Evaluation Center, which is a Microsoft portal via which the Microsoft is actually giving away its own products, infrastructure products, Windows Server, Microsoft Exchange, and then Hyper-V. and then SharePoint, okay, the SQL Server, okay, but it's trial edition, okay, so you can get a Windows Server 2019 for 180 days, but it's full featured, okay. When I say full featured, it means that once you install, you have all of the features, regardless that you actually have it in the evaluation version, but you have all of the features of the Windows Server 2019, and automatically by your internet connection, that particular evaluation version is going to be automatically activated. Okay, so we have a few questions. So we're here to make this presentation interesting, but then we're going to skip that one. Okay, so that was all, folks, and I hope you've enjoyed this particular presentation. I was actually trying to provide you the in most convenient way, briefly and concretely, the concepts and definitions and the information regarding the introduction of the Windows Server 2019. Whenever you are, stay healthy and peace and blessings for myself. Take care.